in Walmart, no matter what time of the day or night that you go. So there I am, I'm going down the aisle in the buggy trying to keep it straight. I get all the way to the back of Walmart and my phone rings. Well, I see that it is from Dr. Maniotis. And I'm thinking, okay, I probably should answer this call. So I'm standing there, I answer the phone, and Dr. Maniotis says, Miss Bone, it's Dr. Maniotis. I wanted to give you a little update on the biopsies that we took a week or so ago. We've sent your biopsies really all over the country. And Miss Bone, it appears that you have esophageal cancer. Miss Bone, we're going to need to do surgery as soon as possible. And we'll do what we call as an esophagogastrectomy. I'm thinking an esophageal what? You know, words you never want to learn, you're learning. And so I'm thinking, what is that? He said, Miss Bone, that's where we'll take your entire esophagus and a portion of your stomach because it is filled with precancer and cancerous tissue. And we'll reshape your stomach and we'll work all that right out. And I'm thinking, okay, what does all of this mean? I'm there in the middle of Walmart on my phone. I got like a 5-pound bag thing of ground chuck in my hand. And my world, hearing those words, as you may have heard words similar, just like stopped right then and there. I thought, but wait a minute, Lord, what about my husband? What about my children and my grandchildren? What about all the things, Lord, that in my heart, I want to serve you. That's been my heart since I was a 17-year-old girl, is to share the love of Christ. What about all of that? And come to think of it, how does a girl eat? If we're going to be doing all of that, how is that going to happen? Well, God has a sense of humor, I think, at times. And, what about that prayer? I'm thinking, okay, this is that prayer I've been praying to lose weight all these years. And here it is. And so next time I'm going to be a little more specific. As you can imagine, those weeks following that, I make light, just because that's my nature, of very serious things at home and getting with the Lord to just help me know what is happening here. And so I was struggling, of course, with that. Even we want to be the best Christian. So I shouldn't be struggling with that. But yeah, we're honest. Yes, we struggle. We don't want those things to touch our life, yet they do all the time. Might not be cancer. It may be a broken heart, a terrible relationship, your job. There's so many things that God allows to touch our life that He wants to use for our good and His glory. Well, those weeks passing, then I was reminded of a scripture that the Lord had given me actually a few weeks before that. Every year around in January, I ask the Lord to give me a verse that I can kind of claim for the year, or a word, in that verse. Well, I thought, I'm going to go check that out because something's wrong here, So I go back to the verse. But the scripture is in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, which is a very familiar verse. But that verse, wow, did it become new and different and something to grab a hold of at that point because of all that had happened and was happening. Well, that verse says, for I know the plans that I have for you. He just as easily could have been saying, Judy, I know the plans that I have for you. There are plans to give you, Judy, a hope and a future, not to harm you, but a hope and a future. So I'm thinking, okay, that sounds really good. So I literally clung to that verse, still do. It's been almost 4.5 years. I cling to that verse knowing that actually now I am living out the promise that God gave at that time. Is my life perfect? Has it changed? A lot. Every bite I take, it's different. That's not always a bad thing. It's just different. When God uses things in our life, it leaves a mark, or it should, don't you think? A mark that changes us, not for the bitter, but for better, and to be used more effectively for whatever God has for us. So I wonder, and I know already, God has probably touched your life with something, and what are we doing with that? I did have the surgery, and I've spent about 8 days in the hospital, a few days in ICU, which was normal. I got to come home with all the bells and whistles, a few extra things that we had not anticipated. Had a feeding tube, we knew that. I got an infection in the hospital, so I got a PICC line and an open wound and other wounds, and that had to heal up as we got home. A 24/7 feeding tube, because you can't eat after that surgery for about 3 weeks. But God sent a gift in the middle of all of that. He sent a home health care nurse. Her name is Lynn Marie. I call her Red. She was from New York, the Bronx. It's funny how God sends little gifts to us in the most unique packages. She is that. She is still a friend today. But God used Red at that point, because my world was like crazy. Our world was crazy. I think the caregiver has as much, I say this and he says, no, as much or more to deal with and walk through as the patient does, because they want to make it all better. They want to fix it, but God is still in control. So anyway, Red, God used her. The purpose, God used her to help heal my body, help do things to care for it, but also God's purpose for me. It's like God helped me at that moment to open up my eyes. Judy, you have a purpose right here in front of you. Nurse Red is your ministry and your purpose for right now. So the Lord brought the two of us together. I know the Lord helped me minister to her, and she truly ministered to me.
That's right.
So God uses all those things all in between to reshape our lives. So Red was a part of that in our life. So I wonder, whenever we walk through things like this, we're saying, what is God doing now? What is the purpose? How is he using that? Well, I know I'm living the promises that he gave me, but there's a word that God uses when I share my testimony. The word is to glow. That in whatever he's walked us through, he wants us to glow from the inside out, whatever that means for you. And so the word G, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 15, says this. I love this. It says, all of this is for your benefit, so that the grace of God that is reaching more and more people may give thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Isn't that a beautiful verse? Right when we're in that hardest place, that we can be grateful. The L for in glow is to lean on Jesus with all that we have, 100% on him. Psalm chapter 5 verse 3 says, in the New American Standard, says, in the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. Isn't that intimate? We forget that sometimes. But the intimacy that he knows, every thought, every prayer, the ones that are uttered, the ones we can't even put words to, he knows. So we lean on him for all of that. And the last part of that verse, it doesn't like just stop there. It says, lean and you will hear my voice in the morning. I will order my prayer to you and eagerly watch. Watch for what is God going to do next. I love that. The O in the word glow for obey. Whatever God is speaking to you, do it. Do as he says, when he says it, to obey. Matthew 5 verse 16 says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good deeds and give glory to the Father in heaven. So he sees all of that. And the W, I have two W words, and I think they go perfecly together. To walk and to worship. As we are walking through whatever it is, whatever stage of the journey that God has us on, to walk and to worship. And the verse in that is Isaiah 60 verse 1. And it says, arise, shine, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. So I just encourage you with that, even personally for sure, but even as a church, can you glow through the journey that God has you on? He wants you to. He wants you to be grateful. He wants you to lean on him. He wants you to obey and to just walk and worship as you're walking. Thank you all for letting me share.